Hello, all you folks out there in YouTube land. Some of you may be wondering why this particular title is appearing, given that I've already reviewed it once. To be honest, when it appeared on Kage's Steam account with a review tag, I thought it was a mistake. I contacted the kind Anon in question, and discovered that he or she had done it intentionally. As it happens, they want to see my thoughts on the PC port, and not so much about the game itself. Now that I've had a chance to play it again, I do have a few more thoughts on the game itself as well. Much as I shouldn't rehash the old review, which is still entirely valid, the frustrated workaholic in me seems to be strongly of the opinion that I should really do it right, and not just tell you that the PC port went pretty well. At least, I didn't have the issues that some people apparently had with the way it runs. A lot of the early reviews I looked at for the Steam version suggest that it was riddled with game-breaking bugs, and to be honest, I haven't found any of it. Just to be double sure, I tested it on Kage's wife's computer, and had no difficulties that weren't readily explained by a lack of raw power in the machine. The version I played last time around was for the PlayStation 3, and it did pretty well technically, even if all the detail wound up requiring smaller maps than the audience on this side of the Pacific found acceptable. To be perfectly blunt, I think we were lucky to get the game at all. One of the bigger gripes I found was the frame rate cap. On some level, I understand where they're coming from. They're used to twice that, and good on them. What they fail to recognize is what this particular piece of software was designed for, and how difficult it can be to remove something basic like that. All the animations are timed for the maximum frame rate, and the PlayStation Vita and PS3 aren't really designed for heavy rendering chores like this particular game at 60 frames per second. I rather like the slower frame rate, if only because I have a clear understanding of just how heavy the game is. Watching Kage spend upwards of an hour rendering each frame for these videos has taught me rather a lot about what you can and can't get away with. If we had to animate them, they never get done. At least, not without a newer computer to work with. His laptop's a few years old now, and it's seen better days. As a reversioning of a console game, I've seen far worse jobs done of it. Oblivion immediately springs to mind. Designed for the Xbox 360, and then ported to PC, or Skyrim, which was a similar thing. I'm not entirely clear on which system Skyrim was originally designed, as Microsoft and Sony fanboys seem to be split about evenly on the question. Given the nature of this generation of consoles, it's likely to be easier to build for PC and do the ports to the consoles than the other way around. Not like there's a large degree of difference between the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox in one way or the other. On with the game itself, then. This game is a competent port of the PlayStation 4 version, and consists of the same sorts of things. Find your targets, strip them, and watch them melt, while exploring the addition of Akiba they made for the game. Lots of shops, plenty or places to explore, and some really neat characters to interact with. Strictly speaking, there's nothing new here. The Xbox 360 controller that modern Windows prefers is a bit wonky compared to the PlayStation controller setup, but a little practice with it and you'll be right as rain. What I do not recommend is trying it with a mouse and keyboard unless you're quick to learn keyboard shortcuts. Kage managed to fly through with a keyboard, and I was quickly lost. My first attempt ended very badly, but after I got used to the controller, it went a lot better. They added a few bits that needed to be dug out, like the quit button, but those things are thankfully few and far between. For those of you interested, the quit button is on the save menu, down the lower right. The main menu would have been better, but we can't have everything. The game does have its warts, but most of them are either forgivable or have more than one way to deal with them. Lots of really funny story, some classic one-liners, several endings, and not murdering the battery on your Vita or overheating your PS3 make this a fun little romp with which to assassinate the clock. If I thought they'd get away with it, I would have lost the little light effects when someone's tender bits get exposed, but Steam frowns on that sort of thing, as does Sony. One of the things I think is best about a PC port is the potential for a modding community not unlike those enjoyed by the Elder Scrolls games. I can't say whether or not it'll happen, or even if there would be enough interest, but it could be a lot of fun seeing the game transported to a place like Seattle for the collecting of grunge music while fighting off heavy metal fans that are out to stop you at the potential cost of their dignity. I don't know how well that would work, but it would be a laugh finding out. In the end, Akiba's trip on Windows is nothing new, but it is a lot of fun for the people that are into Japanese culture, especially otaku culture and its trappings. It's a fun ride, and ultimately, that's what games should be, in my opinion. There are some small things that don't quite work, and some others where they could have made a few changes, but all in all, they did a reasonably good job with it. I think I'll stick with my original rating of 80, simply because it is the same game as before, just with a bit less complaining from the hardware fans. If you haven't gotten it yet, and like the premise, then I would do that. If you're expecting this game to keep up with Call of Battlefield, then you're probably not going to be happy. Your job in this game is to stay alive by means of letting Saul do all the killing, while you keep the clothes they were wearing. No bullets, no grenades. Just a really strange cross between strip poker, Streets of Rage, and your average visual novel. You're either going to love it to pieces or hate it intensely. I'm very much the former, whereas Tabitha disagreed with me only a lot. Akiba's trip is an example of quirky fun, and that's really not a bad thing. Let's make games fun again. Hello,